on TV, on radio, and on your smartphone. This is Talk TV.
I'm Piers Morgan. Uncensored tonight. Protesters prepared as celebrations for the King's coronation. They just have a day off. For once, put the country first. I'll take on two of them. He spent 7 decades in training for this moment, but is King Charles the man to mend an embattled monarchy? We'll debate that with a sparkling panel of Sir Ranulph Fiennes and Andrew Morgan. And then Elon Musk says civilization will collapse if we don't start having more children. Yes, more. I'm joined by the Silicon Valley hotshots who say they are breeding to save mankind.
Live from the News Building in London, this is Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Well, good evening from London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Brits will celebrate the coronation of King Charles in many weird and wonderful ways on Saturday. After all, a royal occasion brings out Britain at its bonkers best. There's the royal superfans, bedecked in Union flags, who've already begun camping outside the Mall, some for the last week, just for a fleeting glimpse of His Majesty and, of course, Camilla, his queen, in the Gold State coach. Well, thousands of neighbours will stuff their faces and wave their flags at street parties. Thirsty patriots will guzzle 36 million pints in a weekend of merriment for the monarch, many of them in pubs, especially rebranded as the Charles and Camilla. There are the royal scarecrows, the Mad Hatters, the transatlantic travellers, and, of course, the great many people who just have a nice long weekend with an extra day off work. Now, you might not share the patriotic fervour that incites our best eccentrics to pay homage to the crown. You might not agree with the monarchy. But the common theme with all the above is that it's celebratory and joyful and a bit of escapism and harmless. If you're making a King Charles mosaic from 1,000 tiny Union Jacks and have a tattoo of Camilla on your forehead, I salute you. If you're tired of the royal circus and you're spending this weekend in your shed, I understand that too. What I don't understand are people like this.
We just can't be, we can't afford to be wasting money on the royals, which operate effectively as parasites.
Parasites? Really? 1,600 members of the Republic, well, what I could call Republic, will target the procession by wearing yellow T-shirts. Radical anti-royalist students, known for defacing statues and invading Windsor Castle, one of them is here, are planning events across the country. Many thunderous dissenters are travelling to the capital to wave placards screaming, "Not my king." Well, bad news. He's your king whether you like it or not. And nobody cares about your principled stand. I mean, they might, but just have a day off. It is true that some people aren't that interested in the coronation and don't think we should have a monarchy. It's also true that the large majority of this country, in all the recent polls, do. And last time I checked, in a democracy, the majority wins. I can guarantee you that categorically nobody wants to see a bunch of attention-seeking protesters ruining the big day. You've got a right to protest, absolutely fundamental right to protest as part of a democracy. Boy, do we know about your right to protest. But to do it in the middle of an enormous national security operation, in front of the world's cameras, when we are showing the very best of our country, the pomp, the pageantry, the majesty, the brilliance of our military armed forces, at their very best in the biggest procession we've seen since the Queen's coronation. We should be proud of this. And if you're not proud of it, well, just be quiet. Have a day off. Go and paint your nose green again. Whatever you want to do that gets you through the night, but just let us have this day. And we can have the debate again all over next week if you want. Well, joining me now from the No More Royals movement is Ros Posner, human rights campaigner Republican Peter Tatchell, and Talk TV presenter Richard Tice, defending the nation today. All right, Riz. You're wearing a T-shirt, which I think explains your view. Yeah. No More Royals, which, by the way, you're completely entitled to wear in a free country, and you're totally entitled to not want a royal family. My question, which I posed in the monologue there, can't you just have a day off? I mean, seriously, because it's not just about the monarchy.
It's a fair question, right?
It's about the entire world watching what are often really great days for Britain to show off something which is positive, rather than, for the last few years, an unbelievable slew of negativity.
So it's disappointing that you think all of us activists are really boring and miserable. It's totally untrue.
Well, enlighten me. or disprove my theory.
Okay, first of all, you said nobody cares. Why am I here if nobody cares? The reality is the public opinion in Britain is totally shifting. We are looking at only a third of young people thinking the monarchy should continue, and in the general public, we're looking at 52%. Only 52% support the future of the monarchy. That's the lowest that's ever recorded.
Well, only
That's an
52%
ITV
voted
stat.
to leave the European Union, but we did, because that's called a democracy.
Right, and
the
the
majority.
point here is that's massively fallen within the last decade. It's clear where this trend is going. Now, I do appreciate your point about joyous events, right? That's important to me. I really strongly believe that all of the activism we ever do needs to involve giving back to our communities and bringing like positivity to people's lives. What we do is about creating hope. This weekend, I'll be in Oxford putting on an event for my community. There'll be live music, my friend's band is going to play, and we'll be chatting to people how they feel about the monarchy, about republicanism, there'll be food, and importantly, we'll be raising money for local homelessness charities. I live in an incredibly unequal...
This is all extremely virtuous, but of course, you and your partner, Imogen, earlier this year, jumped into the King's bed at Windsor Castle
That's
and
correct.
posed for photographs while reading Prince Harry's book Spare and eating junk food. We've got pictures of you there. What was the purpose of that?
So the purpose is to get people talking about, get people like you pissed off and shocked, basically.
Really?
We want people to be
Haven't
talking...
you got a higher calling, Riz? I mean, no, you seem perfectly nice young lady. You've been incredibly well, and if I may say so, expensively educated, right? Haven't you? You've had a lot of privilege in your life.
With scholarships, absolutely, yes.
Right, I mean, you've gone to some extremely expensive schools.
So just to talk about the
I'm not attacking you, by the way.
process.
I've done the same with my kids.
That's
I'm
fine.
just saying.
I'd like to talk about the issue.
You have enjoyed a lot of privilege.
Absolutely.
And yet you seem to be incensed by privilege.
So yeah, that's a really important issue to me.
How do you square the two things? I mean.
Yeah, I absolutely have had a massive amount of privilege in my life. I'm not upper class royal rich.
Has it ruined you?
Absolutely.
That privilege?
Can I just, could we just go to the protest? You did ask me a question about that.
Yeah.
The point was to communicate just sort of how, this juxtaposition between modern Britain and what that looks like, and this archaic, weird set of institutions that just doesn't sit right with that. We wanted to bring attention to the issue because if we hadn't done that, I wouldn't be on this show talking about it, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to say to your listeners, we need a republic, we need a better democracy in Britain. And
Who would you have as president?
Can I go into those issues? Because I'd really like to
give me a
talk
name.
about the specifics. Okay, so...
Who would do a better job as president than Elizabeth did as queen for 70 years?
Yeah, so I appreciate your point. It's absolutely true that there are bad and good politicians.
Give me a name.
I'm not the entirety of Britain.
Give me any name will do. Who would be a good president?
What I want to communicate...
I'm asking you because in America, we're about to have Biden-Trump for the second time.
No,
one is a doddery,
appreciate your
senile
point.
man who can't remember his own name. The other one is indicted on criminal charges. That is where purely elected officials can take
I appreciate your point. If I could just respond to it. There absolutely are bad and good politicians in any political system. That's true. There are really good presidents. Ireland has a really good presidential system. There are many semi-presidential systems. There are parliamentary presidential systems. What I want to communicate here is if you're talking about we can't trust the people to vote for their president, you can't call yourself a Democrat. That's fine. That's an argument you're entitled to make, but that doesn't sit with the principles of democracy. Can I just say this last
Well, hang on. I've given you a good old burst. You can come back in a minute. Richard.
Riz, you talked about positivity. We've got billions of people around the world this weekend who are going to look at Britain at its best, at its finest, at its most historic. This event will create hundreds of millions of pounds to the UK economy. The royal family, every single year, create, in terms of brand value, the latest stats, about $2 billion a year, right? The royal family, they give 85% of their assets, which is called the Crown Estate, to the British taxpayer, which they don't have to do, but they do, making huge profits. All of the offshore wind farms are on the land owned by the monarch. It's $1 billion a year of profits that goes to the British taxpayer. It's one of our greatest global assets. People admire it, they respect it, people are wanting to join the Commonwealth, all because of the royal family. A president who comes every 4 or 5 years creates no brand value at all.
First, and then we can talk about presidential systems after. You talked about pride, right? And I really appreciate you raising that. The reality is only 9% of Britons are a great deal excited about the coronation.
What about the billions of people around the world?
Let me just finish that point. I think we have far better sources of pride in Britain than an unelected
Give me one.
There are so many things.
Give me one.
My community I'm proud of.
What community?
How people have been...
What community?
Oh, come on, you're being facetious. I'm proud of how British people
What are you talking about, your community? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis.
Who's your community?
With the greatest of respect.
Hang on. Who is your community?
What are you... I don't get what you're trying to
I don't know what you mean.
here.
What do you mean, your community?
My community is the people around me.
I know you're a young
support
student
each
at
other.
Oxford, right? Mm-hmm. Having a wonderful education, hugely expensive education. Again, right? It's great. Good. Well done on more privilege and elitism. But let me ask you, who is the community that you're talking about?
The people in that city and other cities that
young people at Oxford University.
With. No, actually, I spend a lot of time working outside of the university.
All right, Peter.
Hang on.
Peter, you've been very patient.
Go ahead.
You're intending to protest, aren't you, on Saturday?
Yeah.
Why?
A peaceful protest.
Yeah.
It will not disrupt. People will be able to celebrate. We're a small group around Trafalgar Square. The whole rest of the route will be for people who want to celebrate the coronation. Why
ruin the party?
We accept their right to celebrate, and we hope they will respect our right to protest.
But why would you go to someone's dinner party and just jump through the window and start shouting at them while they're having a meal if you didn't agree with what they're eating?
No, but...
So why would you do this to a big party for the country when everyone's having a lovely time? Even if you don't agree with it, can't you just take a day off?
This party still costs money.
Let Peter answer.
It's because, very simply, Charles is not only king, he is a head of state.
Yeah.
And even if people believe in him being king, he should not be head of state.
Why not?
The highest public office in the land should not be inherited by a privileged family.
Yeah, but Peter,
it should be open to anyone of merit to be elected by the people.
But what executive power does the monarch really have now?
Well, it has huge reserve powers.
Peter, no executive power.
The answer is none.
No
Admit
executive power.
Be honest.
Every law has to be signed by the monarch.
That is purely a functional thing which happens.
Okay.
And it's they don't ever say no. So they have no executive power. What they do provide is soft power. Yeah. They are one of the few things we have left in this country, frankly, right now, where we are world leaders. There is no monarchy to rival ours. There is nobody in the world as a nation that can put on the kind of show we're going to put on Saturday. And frankly, I am proud of that. I think it's a great asset to our country.
You are whitewashing the reality of royalism.
Go on.
The monarch has a secretive power called King's Consent, which has been used over 1,000 times to block or modify legislation affecting the royals. That is, giving them derogations in terms of employment rights for their 700 servants, giving them derogations for health and safety, giving them derogations for environmental protection. They pay no inheritance tax. Charles inherited almost £1 billion from his mother. He didn't pay a single penny in inheritance tax. That is so unfair in a society.
I think
Peter, let me finish.
No, you talk about money.
That is so unfair. That is so unfair.
To me, the financial benefit of the monarchy, they wash their face, to put it as a colloquial phrase, where they don't really cost us anything. It's estimated that it might cost us 1p a day.
Let's be very clear.
That is not true.
They own the Crown Estate.
They should not own the Crown Estate.
They've owned it for 1,000 years, Peter.
That belongs to the British people.
They give 85% of the profits of the Crown Estate, and they give an additional £1 billion a year on the offshore wind farms alone.
I really appreciate you raising that point, Richard, because I'd really like to talk about the economy. Recent estimates are £345 million. That's how much the monarchy costs us. Now, yes, some of that is the sovereign grant, which is paid for by...
It's all the sovereign grant.
No, it's not actually. There's the sovereign grant, which absolutely, you're right.
Which comes from their own estate.
Finish my point, Richard. Yes, the sovereign grant does come from the estates.
Thank you.
Which are not personal property. They belong to the land.
monarch.
Would you just let me finish my point? However, that cost, the sovereign grant, which is far smaller than the £345 million I've quoted, does not include the cost of the...
But Riz, here's my point again.
Oh my God, let me finish my point.
Riz, why do you care?
I would really
Why do you care? If you don't agree with the monarchy or the royals, why don't you just find something more interesting to be angry about?
Would you just let me finish?
Go after cost of living crisis or whatever it may be.
That's what I'm talking about, Piers. Local government, security, those are all excess costs. The cost of the monarchy is far bigger than what it's quoted.
They estimate...
And that is money that should be going back into...
Let me just respond to that. Let me just respond. We are having a conversation. It's not one-way traffic.
Except we're not, because you're not letting me finish a single point.
I'm hosting a show with 3 guests. It's not just about you. It was revealed today that they reckon the 100,000 tourists coming to London, just London, for this coronation, that all that they will do in the time they're here will bring in £450 million.
Brilliant. I'd love to
along with all the extra hospitality for the capital alone. So look, my point, Peter, is this, is that I believe they wash their face financially, in which case the argument shouldn't be about the money part of it.
But it made it about the money. You've said they're bringing all this money.
Yeah, but I believe
that reduces the monarchy to grubby commercialism.
I'm removing the money from the argument because I think the bigger argument is whether we should have an unelected head of state. Is a more interesting debate to me than the semantics over the money, which I think they actually pay for themselves. On that one point, who would you have as president?
That will be up to the British people.
Well, give me an option.
I think Baroness Helena Kennedy, QC, or KC, would be a fine president.
Really?
And a human rights lawyer who's done exceptional work to defend the rights of the British people.
And no tourist around the world is going to come and see Baroness that no one's ever heard of. You're talking absolute nonsense. We're talking...
So,
the monarchy
the
creates
tourism that happens...
billions of pounds of revenue to this great country of ours.
Completely
it's
incorrect.
It's the proudest thing we have.
What creates those profits is the royal estates.
All right.
We can look at...
I can't go...
No tourist actually sees the Queen.
I cannot go back to your notebook. We haven't got time.
Okay.
But it's been a good debate. Thank you. Come back another time.
This hasn't been a debate. You haven't let me finish a single point. What I want to make clear is you've said I should be campaigning of the Queen.
Riz, you've done more talking than any of the other guests.
You haven't let me finish.
So the words you're looking for are thank you, Piers.
This is a deluded
And it's been good to see you, Peter. Always good to see you. I'll look out for you on Saturday with your banner. I'll be commenting on this for Fox in America. And if I see you, I'll give you a shout out. There's my friend Peter with his not in my name banner. Richard, always good to see you too. Riz, calm down. Count to 10. There'll be another chance. Go back to Oxford. Count yourself lucky about the privileged education you're getting.
Shut up.
Huh? You're one of the most privileged young ladies in the country. Almost right up there with Prince William. Still to come. He served the longest apprenticeship in history, but is King Charles the man to rescue an embattled monarchy? Andrew Morton has run off finds. What a panel that is. Will join me next.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the Real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the King.
If you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
and Paul.
What is good about Britain? Our royal family. Our king.
If you want the real crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the king.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. We're less than 48 hours away from King Charles being officially proclaimed as our monarch, the first coronation of my lifetime and most people's lifetimes. The new King and Queen have been leading other senior royals in rehearsals for a global spectacle. It's been 70 years in the waiting. But is King Charles the monarch to meet a difficult moment for the monarchy? A Savanta poll out today says just 14% of Brits think he'll do a better job than his late mother. And to be honest, I'm surprised it's even that high because she was a unparalleled monarch, the greatest of all time in my view. Well, joining me to discuss this, the royal biographer Andrew Morton, and shortly speaking to the explorer and close friend of the King, Sir Ranulph Fiennes as well. So Andrew, well, great to see you.
Hi, nice to see
can't
you.
think of a better man to put all this into perspective. It's an incredible, it's like following Alex Ferguson at Manchester United or Sinatra at the Sands, isn't it, for poor Charles? He waited all this time. And of course, the longer his mother went on, the greater her reputation and legacy became, until the point where she is now acknowledged as the greatest monarch in history.
Yes, and yeah, indeed, and the twilight of her reign, I think, was the finest part of
Yes.
her reign. The speech she made,
Speech in the COVID pandemic.
"We'll meet again" speech, still brings tears to my eyes.
Yes, I agree.
Now. And I think, and she showed a real side to herself that she'd never shown before. So, ironically, when she passed, she was at her popularity was at its zenith. But quite frankly, I mean, you know, we've all seen King Charles over the years, and we've seen his development from a little boy at the last coronation to today. So he's had enough training.
Well, he's had the greatest apprenticeship in history.
Yeah, the big difference between the Queen's coronation and this one is that when Elizabeth was crowned in 1953, people talked about a new Elizabethan age.
Yes.
It was a step change and so on. This is just business as usual. It's people in their 70s getting married. I mean, you know, when Elizabeth became Queen, Churchill was in tears because he thought, you know, she couldn't cope with the job. Of course, King Charles can, because he knows all the people. He knows all the people in Europe, all the people, you know, all the politicians in Britain.
You, as we know, had a very close relationship with Princess Diana. You wrote that extraordinary book. What would she have made of this, do you think? Because she said that famously in the panorama, I'm not sure he'd be up for the top job or even wanted the top job.
Well, you know, she said to me right from the start with one of the early interviews that she would never become Queen, but she'd have a rough road, and that she didn't think that he would ever become king. And what she wanted was to see Charles go off to Tuscany with what she called then his lady, and leave her to look after the shop, as it were, with Prince William and guide him to the throne. So skip a generation. So she's the one who started that debate off, which has kind of resonated down through the decades.
How would she have felt if she was still alive at seeing Camilla get crowned Queen?
Well, the 1997 version of Diana, before she passed, would have been furious for the simple reason that, you know, in her conversations with the Queen said, "Oh, Charles will never marry Camilla." Of course, she got that wrong as well. So in those days, she would have been absolutely mortified. But 25 years on, you would hope that she's found a new love, a new life, a new purpose in life.
And some peace, perhaps.
And I was intrigued looking at the guest list that Andrew Parker Bowles is going to be in the congregation, and I thought to myself, now that's a shrewd move. That's an amicable divorce. Diana.
I wonder if Diana would have been there.
She wouldn't have been there. No, she'd have been somewhere else. She'd have been abroad.
Yeah.
Presumably, you know, visiting a hospital. Duke of Windsor, he wasn't invited.
Yeah.
He went to Paris, sat and did a running commentary from the TV screen in front of his friends.
I want to bring in Saranov Fines. We've now made contact with Saranov. Great to have you on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I want to start with a clip of King Charles now, of course, but he was Prince Charles when he said this about you.
He wanted to do the things that hadn't been done by other people, to achieve that others haven't. If you had too much imagination, you'd never do these things, I don't think.
He wrote asking if I'd be interested in helping.
Rather nice to have people who are proper eccentrics. He had this absolute drive and determination.
Well, Saranov, he doesn't get better than that. This is a man who's about to be crowned king of our country, bestowing you with these amazing tributes. How did that make you feel?
Well, he was great. I mean, I'll give you an instance. We used to go to Highgrove to brief him in the 70s and 80s as to the next expedition, world-breaking attempt he would be patron of. But he wouldn't agree to be patron without us going to describe everything that was going on that next expedition. And on one occasion at Highgrove, he said, yeah, that sounds a good idea, but who are we raising money for this time? And I said, well, sir, I'm afraid, we never have raised money. And he said, well, I wouldn't have been your patron if I'd known that. And I said, well, who do you want to raise money for? And he said, I'll let you know. And a couple of months later, he said, MS, multiple sclerosis. And to cut a long story short, now, all these years later, we're up to 19.8 million for UK charities as a result of Prince Charles's one comment.
Amazing. You know him well, much better than most people. What do you think are the biggest misunderstandings about him as a man?
People really don't seem to know what a wonderful, honest, humble character he is. And he's got a great sense of humour, a great sense of duty, but, he's had a lot of people against him, anti-monarchy and so on, and he lives in a democracy, and he knows his place, as it were, and we've been very, very lucky having him. I can remember being told that the Special Air Service, who were in charge of the first journey around Earth vertically that we were doing with Prince Charles as the patron, he came out to Australia to say hello. He got on the ship at Greenwich, where we set out, and he steered all the way down the Thames. He came to visit us when we had a show of all our sponsors at Farnborough, inside Farnborough, and he, with his equerry, who was scared stiff, was at the wheel. He, for good flight, it was a Twin Otter ski plane with wheels at the time, and as he landed on the snow and ice at Farnborough at that time, he thought, oh, that is nice, and he did it 3 times, and his equerry was terrified.
Well, I've known him a bit, and I actually know Camilla better, who I'm a big fan of. I think she's been an amazingly stoic rock in his life. It's very difficult. I was talking to Andrew Morton here about this. When you're following a monarch as great as his mother, and of course he had to take over whilst mourning the loss of his mother, coming quite soon after the death of his father. These are seismic changes in any man's life, both personally and professionally. Do you think he has the tools? I mean, you're one of the most resilient men in the country. Do you think he has the tools to not just come through that, but to thrive and be the king that he's always wanted to be?
I think so, but I'm no good at hypothesis into the future. What will go for and against, we just do not know. But if anyone stands a very good chance of it, with a good sense of humour and a good sense of humility, as I told you, and honest, he will be the best possible one that we could have.
We had a young lady on earlier who was very exercised about the idea of a monarchy, wanted to get rid of the monarchy, have a republic. There is a Republican whiff in the air amongst many countries in the Commonwealth, and a little bit of it here as well. When you justify our monarchy to people, if you get into that kind of debate with people, what are the best selling points, do you think, of why we should continue to have one?
Well, we are a democracy, and so if we vote for having a king rather than one of the many other alternatives, then, yeah, you're going to get lots of people against it, lots of people for it. Some of their reasons seem to be very reasonable, but the bottom line is that we remain a democracy, and we stand up for any other democracies like Zelensky's. And, the monarchy normally, but not always, of course, is democratic.
Yeah, and to those who say that the whole idea of an unelected head of state, unelected monarchy presiding over our democratic process, what's the best justification for a monarchy, do you think?
I think it's the way we inherit things and always have. In the UK, I don't know about France and anywhere else, but in the UK, inheritance through a certain line is what we've been accustomed to all these generations.
Yeah, I think that's right. Andrew, let me bring you back in here.
Yes, stability and continuity.
Yeah, I mean, when you get asked, come on then, explain why Britain should have this ridiculous farce of unelected people living in palaces with servants. What's the best answer?
Well, it is a constitutional monarchy. That's what Churchill always used to think. It was a constitutional monarchy. It wasn't a tyranny. It wasn't ruled by one man, and it's kind of like explaining the game of cricket to an American. They don't. It's one of those things that it's evolved over the years, and it can do with some reforming. I mean, I notice now that King Charles is reforming the way that they have their palaces and houses, and there's a lot that can be done, but at the same time, do you live by the premise that this is the best that we've got for our country? And I think the answer is yes.
You recently starred in Series 5 of The Crown, or rather you were played by an actor, Andrew Steele.
More than you, and I've got one up on you.
We have a clip. I wasn't in The Crown yet. There's still time. Let's take a look at this.
As a royal correspondent, I've had a ringside seat to this marriage for a while. Most recently her second honeymoon. And I can't stand to see someone being crushed like this.
You think she is being?
I do. Take this book that's being written.
With the Prince of Wales's cooperation?
Maybe not him directly, but his friends for sure, who want what they see as the truth about Diana to be told. Trust me, it won't be pretty.
I just want to do what's right for her. She's like a sister to me.
And I give you my word, no one will ever know she had anything to do with it.
I mean, a bit too much hair, I think, to be inaccurate.
But I have to say, if she'd have lived, I would still be saying today she had nothing to do with the book, because she was, as it were, the deep throat.
Listen, Diana once gave me a 90-minute interview on the phone when I was editor of The Mirror about her eating disorders after visiting a clinic, and then the next morning issued a statement to Press Association expressing her fury at these intrusive revelations, which had all come from her. So she was a mercurial character. Where will you be on the big day?
I'll be outside Westminster Abbey.
Yeah, OK.
I'm looking forward to it.
And a quick word about Prince Harry. What reception do you think he's going to get? And what does he deserve?
Well, he deserves... It's a state occasion, not a family occasion, and he deserves a hard bench, presumably sitting at the back of the...
What would Diana have made of what he's been doing?
Well, I mean, Diana did her own biography with me, so she would have been perfectly content, especially as Harry gave Camilla a good kicking.
Yeah, it's probably true.
And remember, Harry speaks, communes with his mother and doesn't make any decisions without referring to her.
Right. Saranov, where will you be on the big day on Saturday?
I'm absolutely miserable. A long time ago, when there was no coronation date fixed, I got fixed up for giving lectures in various parts of the north, Scarborough and around that area, and the contract, can't be undone. So I'm hoping that our patron Prince Charles will understand.
Well, King Charles as he now is.
Yeah, but we've been used to him being Prince Charles for all these years.
Well, we're used to you being Sir Ranulph, but it can't be long before you're promoted to Lord Fines, can it?
It can, because I didn't get a Sir anyway. It was my dad, and he got it from his granddad. And so I don't like using it very often because I didn't earn it. Do you understand what I mean?
I do, but you do earn it because you're a great national treasure. So whether you think you earned it or not, I think you do. And it's great to have you, Sir Ranulph, on the programme. Thank you very much.
No, thank you for asking me and making about a wonderful man, Prince Charles.
King Charles.
King Charles.
I'm sorry, King Charles.
Great to see you. And Andrew, thank you very much indeed. Really
My
appreciate you
pleasure.
coming in. Thank you.
And the big day, of course, is Man City Leeds.
Well, let's not talk football. Don't intrude into private grief. Arsenal fans, I can't go there. Too painful. Still to come, we're often told the world is overpopulated and the planet will simply explode with human beings. But others don't agree with that. A new Silicon Valley movement says the opposite is true. And we have to all have more children to save mankind. Elon Musk thinks this is a massive crisis that is about to unfurl. We'll talk to a couple after the break who are breeding like the proverbial rabbits because they believe this.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the Real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the King.
If you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the Real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the King.
This is Talk TV.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. The UN says there'll be 11 billion humans by the year 2100, sparking warnings that overpopulation risks famine, disease, conflict, and even complete societal collapse. On the polar opposite side of that debate, though, are the pronatalists, elite Silicon Valley couples who say birth rates are going to fall and we should all breed more to save humanity. Elon Musk is their most famous advocate, and he's one of the smartest guys in the world. The world's richest man, and one of the cleverest, has 10 of his own kids and claims population collapse due to low birth rates is a much bigger risk to civilization than global warming. Meanwhile, down the road in Montecito, that world-renowned expert on everything, Prince Harry, told Vogue in 2019 that he capped the number of kids he's planning with Meghan to help save the world to 2 maximum, he said. He said, I've always thought this place is borrowed, and surely being as intelligent as we all are, at which point I'm afraid he lost me. Anyway, let's move on from Harry's quotes, because once he says that, he loses the argument. One couple at the centre of the pronatalist movement and the backlash to it are Simone and Malcolm Collins from Pennsylvania. Currently have 3 children and plan to expand their family to 7, and they join me now from Philadelphia. Well, welcome to both of you. So, Simone, let me start with you, if I may, because you're doing the physical side of this intensive breeding. But it's very interesting because I've listened to Elon Musk about this, and he is absolutely adamant this is the biggest threat, actually, along with artificial intelligence, to mankind, is the reverse of what most people think. It's actually a case of the population levels tumbling to a level which is going to endanger the planet. Explain to people who think that's ridiculous why that is a real situation.
Yes, as soon as societies basically reach a level of modernity where there is prosperity, gender equality, high levels of education, populations start to drop below replacement rate. That's a pretty serious problem if it seems like modernity and all the things that we consider to be good, like women's rights, like prosperity, like good quality of life, seem incompatible with flourishing humans.
It seems wild to me that we live in a world today where not a single country or culture, except for maybe Israel, has found out how to maintain a stable population alongside prosperity, gender equality, and education. This, as like a civilization, is probably something we should start talking about.
And I'm saying, once I heard I was having you guys on as guests, I did read a lot about this. And it seems to be that the graph continues to rise, population, until around the middle of the century. But then it could start to fall precipitously after that.
Yeah, so if you look at fertility rates today, the only countries that really have above repopulation fertility rates are where the average salary is under 4,000 pounds a year or 5,000 USD a year. So you're really only seeing high fertility rates in desperately poor countries right now. If you look at the developed world, the average fertility rate is only around 1.5, and we need 2.1 just to keep stable populations.
OK, and Simone, I know that you're planning to have 7 children, I think. You've got 3 under your belt, literally. How fast do you want to have the 7? Is the clock ticking here?
Absolutely, yeah. We need to have them basically as quickly spaced as possible. So we're going in for our next round, essentially, next month. And we're going to have more than 7 if we can, basically, until my uterus is forcibly removed in a botched surgery. I'm going to keep going.
I mean, it is. Look, we laugh about it, but there's a very serious point to this. And it's fascinating because the more I've dug into it, after actually Elon Musk said what he said, the more interesting it becomes. And look, it is an argument which is argued vehemently both ways. You know, there are a lot of people who believe the complete opposite, but there are a lot of smart people who think this is a real doomsday thing coming around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to look at how quickly fertility rates can collapse. When I started caring about this, I was working as a venture capital in Korea, and I had to constantly plan out the future of their economy. At South Korea's current fertility rate, for every 100 South Koreans, there will be 6 great-grandchildren. We're looking at a 94% population collapse. Coming back to places like the US and the UK, it felt like traveling 2 decades back in time, like I was in some sort of sci-fi world, and I got a chance to try to raise the flag before it was too late. Because when you hit a place like Korea, where now 60% of the population is above the age of 40, it's probably too late for them to turn the situation around. And then there's all these economic problems. You can say, well, we can solve this with immigration, but then what you're doing is you're making the developed world reliant, their economies reliant on keeping Africa poor, or the African countries poor, that have these high fertility rates. And that's not a good place to put the world in. And then you talk to the US about this and they go, oh, we can solve this with immigration. But as of 2019, by the UN's own statistics, collectively, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean fell below repopulation rate. So I think people are they're not aware of how far this problem has progressed.
No, and the numbers,
a few countries in the world today.
Yeah, and the numbers are pretty startling, actually. I mean, Simone, the answer clearly is we have to go back to massive gender inequality, right?
No, I mean, the whole reason why we're advocates in this entire space is we really want a future in which there is gender equality. And if we don't take measures now, the future is one with massive gender inequality.
Right.
Basically, the future of feminism requires on more feminist people having kids and raising them in a durable culture that is feminist.
And this is what was so funny.
I'm sorry, I've run out of time. I'm actually going to get you guys back another time because this is a really interesting debate. Honestly, I find this really intriguing, and you're great guests. So thank you very much for joining me now. And we're going to do a bigger debate on this down the line after our coronation's out of the way. But thank you, Simone and Malcolm. I appreciate you joining me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're excited to.
We need the royals to keep breeding, and we don't have a monarchy. So at the very least, they've got to keep going. Uncensored next. I'll debate all this with my panel. Look at this panel, waiting expectantly. Back to the kitchen for you two then. We'll debate that after a break. And Catherine Jenkins will perform again. A wonderful national song.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the Real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the king.
If you're thinking it, we're talking about it.
For the Real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the Real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the king.
Hello, darlings. We have a fabulous show coming up for you at 9 o'clock.
We really do. On the talk tonight, Will and Kate are the fresh face of the royal family as they wow coronation crowds in Soho. There are new demands for an apology and reparations from King Charles. And we're talking about the university that's cut the word woman from its maternity leave policy, and Sharon's really annoyed about it. That's all in 10 minutes.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'm with Talk TV's international editor, Isabella Oakeshott, and Talk TV contributor, Paula Roan-Adrian. OK, what do we make of this, Paula? It's an interesting debate, right? I mean, are we all getting this completely wrong? Is it actually that we're going to be underpopulated?
So, no is the short answer to that question. I appreciate...
How do you know?
Because I've also can read, Piers, like you, and I also did my research, like you. And what we are not doing by listening to the Collinses, as wonderful and romantic as they sound, what we're not doing is taking into account the other factors that need to be taken into account to live on this planet.
Like what?
Like climate change, like the fact that we are going to see the mass migration of people due to climate change. What's going to happen when the droughts hit? What's going to happen when there's no more fish in the sea, etc.
But how is that going to affect the reality of prosperous countries heading towards massive underpopulation? That's a separate argument,
And
right?
I think you are actually touching on something much more sensitive there, which is that essentially the population is rising and going to continue rising quite steadily up for about the next 80 years, something like that. And then it's going to slightly fall back.
That's not what Elon Musk says.
I think what they're really saying is that the population isn't rising among the right sort of people.
Yes.
And I also think very, very rarely for you slightly missed a trick with your interview with them because you didn't bring up the impact of the whole trans thing and all these people who are now voluntarily kind of giving up their reproductive system.
Well, that does bring me neatly, actually, to the University of the Art in London. Has been criticised for removing the word woman from its maternity leave and menopause information. It will now apply to all genders. They prefer to use individual, person and people because they want to be inclusive, Isabel.
I mean, you can only go through the menopause if you've got female reproductive parts.
Apparently not.
So, well, no, that is just a fact. I mean, a trans man could go through the menopause, but how many of those will there be in that?
Well, because a
particular
trans man is a
setting?
biological female.
Exactly. So they may go through the menopause, but are you going to alter
But here's my point about
your
this.
entire language around
all right, Paula,
one person?
why does all language for women and women's health issues have to be irrevocably changed at the altar of trans activism? Sorry, a tiny percentage of trans people will have any involvement with any of this. 99% of women want to be called women. They want to be called mothers. They want to be told they're having a menopause. Women. What's happening to the country when the word woman is now being erased?
So I think the issue is it's about gender neutrality, isn't it? It's about finding terminology that will be able to include everybody.
Why in our
example-
haste to not offend the trans community are we deliberately offending 99% of women?
Well-
Where are their rights to be called women? Seriously.
I mean, everyone's very, very excitable, and for us to have
I find this whole issue utterly enraging, and I'm not even a woman.
We need to be calm for us to have this debate.
I don't think we need to be calm.
No,
I think
because the
quite
ones screaming
opposite.
loudest are affecting all the change.
Yes.
They're bullying everybody into going along with this total insanity. I want the word woman to be saved. I like women. I like you women. But I don't understand why every woman isn't storming the ramparts.
Why is it called the menopause? Are they now going to say it has to be called the themopause
Yes,
or something
yes,
like that?
the usopause,
you know,
perhaps.
But please.
If I can answer your question.
You can try.
When we look at gender neutrality, it is about trying to find words that are inclusive. And I get that.
Why do you have to?
In terms of...
Why do you have to?
Well, because chairman is not an inclusive term. You could have chair, a chair.
Who was ever...
That is an
all right.
inclusive
What
terminology.
about manhole? What about manhole?
And what about manhole? What about...
Does that have to go?
What about dustman?
Does that have to go? Yeah.
You're going to call them...
Is that an appropriate
Specifically,
term?
what
Is
about
that an
manhole?
Is that an appropriate
A manhole.
term? Doesn't it? It's
Is that offensive?
It doesn't need to be a person. It
Why are
doesn't
you
need to be
being?
a gendered whole.
Why are you being
Does
holist?
it need to be
You're being holist.
whole?
Well,
I don't think it
one.
does.
It is
and that's the point about gender neutrality.
Paula,
isn't it? You
even
don't
you
have
don't
to
believe
do
this,
that.
and
don't
you
have to do
virtue
that.
signal
But
for
can I
every drop
say-
of your blood.
can I
Final word.
say-
We can tell she's talking absolute nonsense. She
Medical-
doesn't believe it.
All
I
right.
don't believe she believes
I've got to leave you because we've got Catherine Jenkins, a bona fide woman, waiting to sing I Vow to Thee, My Country. That's it from me. I'll be back tomorrow night with a Friday special about the coronation. Keep it uncensored.
I vow to thee, my country,
For the real Crown experience, tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. Watch along with Sharon.
He is a humanitarian and he's going to do a great job.
Vanessa.
We can't wait, we're counting down, we've got the mug, we've got the bunting.
And Paul.
What is good about Britain, our royal family, our king.
If you want the real Crown, then tune in to Talk TV for a right royal point of view. God save the King.
If you're thinking it,